So, namaste, welcome to this Ask Me Anything, volume 19. I'm here today with Karen, who's going to read for me. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Helen.
Thank you for reading and making it easier for me.
My pleasure.
So just before we get started, just want to let you know, this is the first one we've done in 2 months of this Ask Me Anything series because we had some time in the USA doing retreats. And the next one after this will be in about 6 weeks from now, taking a little bit of time off at the beginning of October. So it will be round about the middle of October when we record the next one. So as always, we're going to read through the comments and the questions underneath volume 18. If you have anything you'd like me to address or answer or talk about, or you have any questions or challenges, or if you have anything that you've broken through and are celebrating, I'd love to also hear about that. So if you want to, you can just put it as a comment under this video on YouTube, and then we'll go through them in the next volume. So that's what we do every time. So whenever you're ready, Karen, if you'd like to get started, thank you.
Sure. So the first comment is from Deb, who says, "Love how you explain the word individual. I've tended to understand that it means separate, but your explanation transforms that beautifully. Thank you, Helen."
Wonderful, thank you. It was confusing for me as well for a long time, so glad it helped.
This is from Mary, who says, "Another beneficial satsang. Love the message that it starts with courage and that if you truly want something, it is in the process. Also to watch where the attention is moving and just allow it to be. I always appreciate the reminder to question what I am believing in back of an emotion. Many thanks."
Yeah, desire for me and manifestation is very, very tricky. So it always really helped me to understand that if I'm wanting something here, it must be because it's already in the process everywhere of my desire is a sign that it's already in manifestation. And that was really pivotal to understand. So I'm glad that helped. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, here's a question from Amber. "Hi, Helen. I was wondering how social anxiety can be approached on the path to awakening. Over the years, I've tried to resolve it by various means, including just putting myself out there in social situations, even though I was terrified. I found that to help temporarily. I've found that to help temporarily, but then the feelings of unworthiness creep in, and I start to ruminate about everything I said and did. No matter what I do, I can't seem to feel comfortable around other people. Is it a matter of contemplating people? Is it a matter of contemplating the limiting beliefs that I have? Or is it something that will slowly dissolve as I become more established in the self? What would you recommend? Thank you."
It's very, very common, this social anxiety, isn't it? And I know it really is quite a traumatic thing to deal with. And what you described is many people's experience. It was my experience as well. So I try to put myself out there and really feel more comfortable around and just push through it. And then when I can't seem to manage to do that, I blame myself more, feel more unworthy. Why can't I transcend this? And, all those thoughts come up. And then the fear is heightened, so is the unworthiness. So I might try even harder or try something different. And if you can see that the fear and the unworthiness are kind of linked in this cycle, that it's both of these that are perpetuating it, and that pushing through it sometimes is helpful, but if it makes you more traumatized by doing that, by just kind of trying to get out there, then it's going to be counterproductive, really. And you've asked this, should I kind of contemplate, or is it just naturally going to go as I awaken further? And I'd say both, actually, rather than or. I would suggest looking at this from several angles. So as you go deeper into your own awakening, it's going to become clearer and clearer that there are no other beings. And you can really use that as a question. Are there any other beings? And even though it may seem, of course there is. In my own awakening, I really had to ask this question, because I was quite happy and peaceful at home on my own. And then when I had to go to a birthday party or a train station or the airport, it was, really quite a different thing. So I had to really ask this question. And I came to see that there aren't any other beings. There's only one, but there's many body and minds, individual, unique expression of this infinite being that we are, that the only thing that is. And that the more I think about other people, the more they seem to be separate to me, the more I'm coming from my mind around this, the more the very act of thinking about someone makes them seem outside of me, separate to me. And that's a vicious circle then, because the more they seem separate to me, the more it seems to make sense to think about them. Are they going to like me? Have I said the right thing? Are they judging me? And I'm judging myself, judging them, and around it goes. It just kind of spirals then into this ever decreasing circle. So for me, it really helped to kind of look at this. There's other bodies, but are there other beings? And even though my mind and my emotions were screaming at me that they are, something was just tired of being limited and suffering. And I know you're in that place, of course, where I just wanted to stay with this question, recognizing that maybe the fear and the unworthiness are actually symptoms of thinking there are other beings rather than the main issue itself. So our mind may be trying to get us to get beyond the fear of other beings, to get comfortable with other beings, when actually we might be at a pivotal point in our awakening where we're ready to see there are no other beings. And we might have seen that in our inquiry, in our meditation, or in a little glimpse, or not. Maybe we haven't seen that yet. But for me, I still had to then look at this idea, this sense that there was something different in the airport to when I'm sat at home here on my sofa with a cup of tea. And there was such a different feeling between those two experiences that it was really quite telling that I had seen that there was no one else. And there was such peace in seeing that. But I had to actually apply it then when I was in those situations for a little while. And now I can be surrounded by people or here on my own, and it doesn't make any difference in how I feel at all. There's no suffering. I still prefer time on my own. Still like to chill out here with me and my cat more than I'm never going to be a social a party animal and all that, and that's okay as long as there's no suffering or we're not hiding at home. That's the difference. So looking at maybe this is something going really right in my awakening, not something that you're doing wrong, and maybe it's time to finally transcend this idea once and for all. So questioning is there actually any other beings? And of course, your mind's going to give you a lot of answers to that question. It's going to tell you, of course, there aren't any other beings. There's only one being. And then it's going to tell you, it's going to tell you lots of thoughts about other beings, when you go back into that normal thought stream. It's going to tell you thoughts about you as a separate being as well, whatever it's saying about you, probably some kind of judgment about you. So just really looking at that, there seems to be other beings. And yes, we're not negating there's other bodies. But if they're not other beings, if they're not separate to me, then this fear and this constant trying to make someone like me, this constant push-pull that most people do with each other, begins to fall away. So yes, it will resolve itself as awakening deepens. But in these big sticky patterns like this, I find a lot of people, myself included, needed to do some sustained questioning. So maybe take it on for 30 days. I'm just going to sit with this question for 30 days, for a couple of minutes each day, and just see what answers come up. Whatever happens, whatever answers come, noises outside, emotions arising inside, thoughts, experiences, just always coming back to that question. The question is the most important thing. Whatever answers come will come and go. But just by questioning this consistently, we can't be sustaining the old thoughts about others, me and other. So consistent questioning is going to pull us out of that thought process. And you might also have to apply it when you're out with others too, if you can remember. If not, it's okay. Sometimes the fear kind of overwhelms the system and it's impossible to even remember what the question is. I used to write it down and stick it on a note in my pocket if I knew I was going to be somewhere where I might forget it. So not judging yourself at all. It's actually a very advanced issue to have, so to speak, fear of others, because it's showing us we're ready to let go of this idea of other. It doesn't mean we're going to flip the other way. We're going to be a complete doormat where we do everything that everybody else wants. It just means we're going to have the right attitude to be in correct relationship with people. So I know when I love being around people, I know also when I want some time on my own, and that's healthy. That's a healthy way to be. So I hope that helps, but please do write back in if you need further advice with that. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, this is a comment from Sokoleski, who says, "It's wonderful to listen to you. It's really soothing and insightful. I'm so happy I found myself back to you."
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Glad I can help.
The next question is, Helen, I'm going through a lot of emotional pain relative to the subject of relationships. I've been single for a long time, and I am haunted by feelings that I must be extremely unattractive and unlikable and will never find anyone. I am tormented by feelings of not being good for anyone, feeling like I will always be alone and that I am missing out on a major part of life that it seems so many others get to enjoy, but not me. When I see other couples around my age settling down and starting families, I feel like I want to cry. I always ask myself, why them and not me? What is so bad about me? Where am I going wrong? I feel so inadequate and like a failure by comparison. I have watched many videos on the law of attraction and manifestation, including your video on desire and abundance, and have tried applying the teachings on manifestation, but it is so difficult for me because the moment I even think about the subject, I am back to thinking negatively and hurting. It is so difficult for me to make myself think positive thoughts or emotions on this subject when I feel so much insecurity and doubt. It feels like all I'm able to do on the subject is hurt over it. I can't even dream about what I want. Even when I occasionally have managed to focus positively using law of attraction teachings, I feel as though it's offset when I am dwelling negatively about the subject over and over again and hurting in my day-to-day life, as I always do. Sorry for such a long question. I feel like I'm just trapped with this and it feels horrible. Just wish this nightmare would end. I appreciate any help you are able to give me. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being so brave to write in and share and ask for help. I really appreciate that, because you're not the only one. I had a conversation with someone this morning about this very same subject. So there's a couple of things I want to get into that might be a little different than how you're perceiving it right now. So these things we just need to clear up before we go into how to resolve it. So the first thing is that nothing that I am teaching is law of attraction. And what I mean by that is, and I've studied law of attraction years and years ago, tried so hard to make it work. And all it did was make things worse. It actually, just as you said, highlighted my unworthiness and my doubts. And I saw it working for so many other people. It was quite a traumatic time, really. And I finally came to figure out that law of attraction works in duality. If I change how I feel in here, me, the separate being, that thing out there is going to come to me. It's going to be drawn to me. So in this case, the right person for a romantic relationship, but it could be anything. It could be money or whatever we feel we want. So what I'm teaching here is non-dual. It's not two. There's no inside and outside. So it's the dualistic thinking is that if I change in here, cause, the effect out there will be different. And that's two things there with law of attraction. And when you're on a spiritual pathway, ready to realize that you're everywhere, You're the only thing that exists. You are the source of the universe. Any practice that we're doing that's emphasizing duality, whether we really realize it or not, two-ness, is going to really backfire for us. It's not going to work. And that is across, it's everyone's experience. So here we're going to flip what we're thinking. We're going to say that instead of, if I do this thing in here, that thing out there is going to change. What we're saying is the way that my outside world is a reflection, a mirror image, but not separate to how I'm feeling inside. So if I am everywhere and I'm not in fact a separate being, then everyone and everything else is me. So the person that loves me, wants to treat me right and respect me and have fun with, grow old together, all of that stuff, whatever we want, literally cannot come until I feel about me how they feel about me, or will feel about me, or whatever. So it's a mirror image. It's saying inside and outside, they're not two. They are actually the same thing. We use in the Dissolving the Ego course, we use this big glass bowl to represent the universe. And in the bowl is water, and the water is the universe, the whole of manifestation. And we put a little glass in the bowl, and the glass is the human body. And then it shows how suddenly we believe there's an inside of the glass and an outside. Before we were just everywhere, one being everywhere. And we put the glass in, and suddenly it seems like something's different. We have a human body, and there's what's going on inside me, and you're suddenly seemingly outside. So everyone else and everything else we automatically assume is outside. So it sounds very similar to law of attraction, I get that, but there is a huge difference. And if that difference isn't obvious right now, it's okay. It doesn't matter. For most people, that difference becomes clear as they start to apply contemplative techniques and actually see something change. So while I feel, I think you mentioned doubts and insecurities, unworthiness, while I feel that way about me, I can't have an outer experience that contradicts that or is even completely the opposite. So how I feel about me deep down is what keeps mirroring back to me, a mirror image. So if I stand in front of a glass mirror and I move slightly to the left, my reflection instantaneously moves. They're not two, they're one. And it's like saying if anything changes inside the glass, it also has to change outside the glass too. The rest of the water must change, as in the analogy that we're using. So to really rectify this, I have to look at, my mind will say, because I can't find the person that I want and get this relationship and make this work, this manifesting thing, I'm obviously no good. I'm not worthy of it. I can't get it right. It'll say that thing out there is making me feel this way in here. And I'm saying how I feel in here is being shown to me, reflected by what's going on out there. So I can see how I feel about myself by what's going on here. So if you can then look at the negative emotions that come with this, probably shame or guilt or some kind of unworthiness, maybe fear, anger, or maybe if it's gone so far, it's gone down to sadness or even apathy or despair. So I want you to make a list of the strongest emotions that come about this. For me, definitely apathy and apathetic, sadness. There's just no point in even wanting something. It was easier to try to not want than to dare to want and be disappointed all over again. I just couldn't take that anymore. And how I feel about the situation is what's mirroring back to me. So if I feel it's hopeless, there is no way to experience what the person that's meant to align with you is out there also feeling it's hopeless. There's no point. I'll never be able to find that person. And you literally cannot meet then in that energy. You could walk past each other and not ever connect, you know. So if you realize that your mind is holding on to this attitude of there's no point, there's just no way to get what I want or need, and then it's trying to explain why you feel that way by saying you're not good enough or whatever it's saying about you, I want you to challenge that. The only evidence for that feeling, that belief that you can't get what you want, is because you've kept experiencing this same old, same old, same old in the world, in this area. And mind says, see, there's no point wanting. It hurts so much to want and be disappointed again and again, and I can't take it anymore. But because we came into this lifetime with that belief inside us, we keep experiencing it. So is it true that you can't have this? Is it true that you can't get what you want? And that could be a romantic relationship or anything. It could be whatever. And in this case, it is some loving, romantic, mutually wonderful relationship that you deserve. And because you want it, it is trying to already happen. Because you inside and outside are one, inside the glass and outside are one. Because you want it here, it must be already trying to manifest out here. The only thing in the way is this belief that you can't get what you want. And maybe you get a little inkling of just how much this might be affecting your whole life. When I looked at it myself, it was everywhere. All my relationships, finances, even awakening. Couldn't get awakening because I had this idea, not that you get it, but allow it to blossom, so to speak. So really challenge this. What does sadness say? What does apathy say? Or whatever the emotion is. Anger, you know, there's no point. I can't get what I want. It's not fair. There's this raging sense of injustice. Life is unfair. Sadness, there's just no point even trying anymore. An apathetic kind of, I give up. I just give up. You know, I'm going to want to not want anything, which is, of course, a wanting in itself. So, you know, so look at how you feel about the situation overall. You don't have to even understand or remember anything I've said previously to fix this. So don't worry, because it might be hard to hold on to anyway, currently, even if there's a moment of epiphany. So how do you feel about the whole situation overall? It probably feels pointless, hopeless, and that there's no way it's ever going to shift. That's very true as a separate being, as someone who's disempowered and alone in the universe. Is it true for you if you are the infinite being? If you also are the person that's trying to come to you? The moment you start to challenge this, how you feel overall, every one of us has got this karmic pattern that has been here forever. And we've tried so hard to fix it, to change it, to transcend it, to let it go, and yet it's still here. And that's because, and it could be relationships or anything, but it's because how we feel about it inside. We've got this idea that it's just impossible. There's no way and no point even wanting. So that's what I want you to challenge. Can that be true as the infinite being? It feels very true as a separate someone. And boy, have we experienced that mirroring back to us again and again, our whole lives. So have a sit with that and see what comes up. How do you feel about it overall? And you've even put some words in, you've given me a lot there to work with, which is great. It feels pointless, feels like it's never going to happen. So you turn that into the question, is it true it's never going to happen? Or is it true I can't get what I want? Whatever feels most aligned. And if you look on the YouTube channel in the core teachings playlist, there is videos on contemplation of how to work with that. And next Satsang, next Thursday, we are going to actually do contemplation work with contemplative techniques in the live. If you can't make it live, it's okay. It'll be uploaded like this video. So really find out what your question is. Is it true you can't get what you want? Your outer experiences of not getting what you want are not good enough evidence that you can't. They're mirror images of this belief, reflections, ripples. It shows up mentally as the belief, emotionally as the pain, and physically as the actual lack of finding someone to spend your life with. So have a go with that. Question it relentlessly and see what happens. Don't stop at mind answers. Stay with the question for at least 30 days. Spend a few minutes with it each day, or more if you want to, and just question. Whatever mind or emotional or experiential answers you get, stay with it for 30 days to turn it around. And we'll see. Right back in if you want to, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, Helen, the next question is from Love Henry. Hello, Helen. I'm going to jump right in to ask this question. I find I go through cycles of intense searching, followed by deepened mental understanding, which leaves the superficial ego side of this experience initially thrilled and shortly thereafter deeply depressed. I'm just gaining more mental knowledge and not experientially coming to truly know the self. I had a brief moment where the little me was pushed from the foreground, but that lasted for 2 seconds. I cannot create what happened, which only increases the frustration, depression, and envy in the character of me. Ego says, see, I knew it isn't for you, this body-mind. And my heart whispers, shh, be still and know you are God. Should I just give up? Is giving up the next step?
So I appreciate you being so straightforward with this. I love every time you write in, you're always so upfront about it, which really helps me to help. So I want you to listen to the previous answer I've just given. Also, the question before this also applies to you. Everything I said. Of course, it's about awakening this time rather than a relationship, but the same thing applies. And also, if you look at this moment of epiphany and then this seemingly long time of despair and all of that, then those are states that are coming and going in the body and mind. And even if you say, what should I do now? Should I give up? Is that the next step? Can you see that those questions and the strategies of how to move forward from this point, firstly, involve someone moving forward and actually someone trying to do something, a seeker that's trying to get somewhere. So if you can see that, great. If not, don't worry so much. You can't actually give up. You can't actually even let go because you're already the infinite silence or consciousness or presence. There seems to be, though, this urge to let go of trying so hard with seeking all of that, and even an urge to recreate the little glimpse that you had. And the best thing I can say right now to shortcut this period for you, because I remember how awful it is absolutely awful. It really is the worst point of awakening. I probably say that about every stage of awakening, but they all have their moments. Is to stop trying to figure out, if you can, if you can't, that's okay, how to get what you want, and actually to turn your attention to what's already here. So we're trying to get to peace, love, and joy, awakening, whatever we call that, based on the assumption that it's not here right now. How do we know? How are we so sure that it's not here right now? Well, we're looking at how our body mind is feeling most of the time, what it's experiencing. For most of us, that's suffering. It's a sense of lack of peace, love, and joy in here, lack of whatever out there, time, money, friendship, romance, whatever it is we're lacking in the outer world, purpose, passion, joy, on and on it goes. So we're driven forward to find new strategies based on the idea that what we're experiencing now isn't enough. Can you see that idea? If you were feeling absolute peace, love, and joy right now, there'd be no urge to move forward, or even if there was, it wouldn't matter. It'd be like, I'm just hanging out here. And the mind says, well, that's all well and good, but I'm not feeling those right now. What if we're not feeling those right now because we're assuming that awakening isn't here right now? What if we're actually disturbing our own self with this idea that I'm not there yet, or it isn't here yet, awakening, whatever that sentence is for you? So you might look at me and go, well, I'm obviously not where she is because she's feeling peace, love, and joy and has found a vocation and all that stuff, whatever, whatever the mind says. In comparison, I'm obviously not there. But that assertion, that assumption is actually mirroring as our suffering. So we cannot use the state of the body, the mind, the emotions, or our life as evidence that we're not already the infinite self. Because we are infinitely powerful, we can use that infinite power to keep recreating suffering over and over again. It will take the shape of that belief, I'm not there yet. And it was like this for me for about 2 years, and it was awful. Trying harder and harder and harder to get to peace, love, and joy. But the very trying was actually disturbing everything and intense suffering. Finally, I started to figure out, well, maybe if I keep on assuming it's not here now, I'm never actually going to reach some future moment, because there isn't a future moment. There's only this now where I feel how I want to feel. What if I let go just for a moment of that assumption that I'm not already awakened and actually ask that question? Is it here now what I want? Is that whatever that is for you? Awakening, peace, bliss, even love, joy, abundance, all the things we really want awakening for. Can we actually experience what we want if we're holding on to this idea that we're not there yet? Mine says, I have to hold on to that idea because if you see my life, when I started asking this, my finances were upside down. I was in a lot of debt. My relationships were completely screwed up. My body was in a lot of physical pain, definitely a lot of emotional pain. My mind was just going nuts. It seemed even embarrassing and absurd to even ask, could I actually already be awakened or already be the self? But I was so desperate to stop suffering that I sat with this question anyway. Even with my life upside down as it was, something began to change. All that driving forward began to turn inwards, not in a self-attacking way, but inwards, deeper into this moment that's already here. I began to realize that I'd just been skimming across the top of each moment and experiencing this idea infinitely deluding myself that I'm not there yet, and using the disturbance in the body and mind and the finances and the relationships as evidence to back that up. And I realized there's no way out of that. What if that's just what's going on the surface of the lake? And underneath there's peace. So much peace. But to get to that, I have to be willing to let go of this assumption and to question it. What else is here right now in this moment? Is it true I'm not already free? What is awakening? What really am I? Am I already the self? What is this moment? These were all questions for me. What is love? I'm just throwing some out there that really worked for me at this stage. And if there's one that grabs you, go for it. And it's a lifeboat. You sit in that question and you'll just start to sink deeper into this moment. You can't solve the problems of the mind up here because they don't really exist, really. The mind's perspective is you're not free because it's looking at the phenomenal evidence of how your body feels right now, how your life is, and saying, see? But the self is sitting underneath that, deep down into this lake, right at the bottom. It is still and it's quiet. And you can't even hear what's going on the surface. It's just completely like irrelevant. So I want you to go deeper into what's already here. Be as determined to find out what's already here as the mind is to keep moving forward, because you know that doesn't work. You've experienced it. And this is a very common thing that we go through to some degree. However long we hang out there, it's pretty nasty, and hopefully we could shortcut this. So apply this, find the question that works for you. And all that energy that's trying to get to some final epiphany or recreate what already happened, you can use to kind of sink deeper into what's already here. And you'll find something quite astounding. How powerful you are is that you will experience that thought over and over again. I'm not already free. I'm not yet free. I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough. This awakening thing is not for me. Mine says, I feel that way because it's not working. And I'm saying, because you feel that way, it's not working. It's a huge shift. It changes everything when you get that. Mind will never understand that. It will always want to hold on to that perspective, because it can't realize that you're infinite and that your experiences are going to mirror your beliefs, your fixed attitudes about how things are. These are really ones that life had to prise away from me with a crowbar, like give it back, because it seemed so true. I was holding on to it with such ferocity, and it was only this horrible torturous suffering that actually made me even want to question it. But once I did, things changed quite dramatically. So have at it, and thank you for being so brave. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, this next question is from Shenrin Yoku Music. Hey, Helen, can you share all the self-inquiry practices you did that brought you to full liberation? I want to practice them exactly the same way you did, if that's all right with you. No need to expand too much in each exercise practice.
Fantastic. So there is actually a playlist on YouTube channel here called Self-Inquiry. And I would suggest looking at those. Everything I'm talking about is what worked for me, and also what didn't work for me. But in that particular playlist are all the things that really worked for me. Not the last satsang, but the one before, we worked with this "where am I" question, and we're working with this in the Sangha at the moment. This question was atomically powerful for me in terms of really beginning to shift a lot of illusion and moving into a deep recognition of who I actually am, who everybody is, what everybody is. The main two with this question, where am I and what am I? Those questions were really powerful, self-inquiry, and I became obsessed with them. We all have this deeply obsessive quality, or else you wouldn't be on the pathway. It's beautiful. Mine's going to obsess over something, how to pay the bills or whatever, it's how to reach awakening. So give it something healthy to obsess over. So any and all of those videos in that playlist. You can also go back to satsangs where we did some live guided self-inquiry with different people on the satsang, and it's been recorded and uploaded to show how that question works. Where am I? But those were the two. Who am I? And I know it has worked for other beings in terms of awakening, but it didn't fit with me. It made me feel more like a person, actually. Like, who am I? Well, I'm this total screw up that's trying to wake up to the truth. So everything I've described in those videos is exactly how I did it. So you'll be doing exactly what I did, and you'll get the exact same results. We're seeing that in our Sangha right now. We're doing a 30-day challenge in our graduate program community. For those that have taken the Dissolve an Ego course, we have a community to continue studying. And we've got a challenge on right now, 30 days of asking these two questions, where am I and what am I? And we're starting to see people, as I record this now, we're on day 18, I think, and we're starting to see people really break through with these very direct questions. I haven't found anything more direct than that. So have a look at those and see which, your body will tell you which question you feel is really exciting. It will resonate it like a tuning fork. Oh, that's exciting. Or you might just feel that question doesn't really get me. There's also one in that playlist, Experiencing Your Buddha Nature, I think it is, which is also very simple and direct, powerful way to find out who you are instantaneously, and then just coming back to that again, experiencing it again and again and again and again and again. Each time you directly experience, it's overriding these thoughts that go back into separation, because just because we've seen who we are, experienced it, the brain is still thinking the same way, the human physiology. So we have to kind of rewrite that, or not use that by experiencing. Each time I experience that I don't have any edges, that I'm everywhere, that I'm the only thing that exists, I am the source of the universe, it's going to override our ability and even our urge to want to go back to, yeah, but what do I do about this? You know, so, and those problems then resolve themselves. So have a look at that playlist, self-inquiry. There's a whole lot there to go after, to go through. Guided meditations playlist as well to help you also experience that more and more often. And that is exactly what I have done. And everything I'm teaching is from my own experience. Never teach anything that I haven't done myself, because I can't vouch for it, basically. So, and I wouldn't want to. Everyone's path is unique. These two questions in particular, where am I? What am I? Atomically powerful. Changed everything for me. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, the next question is from DJimmy92. Hi, Helen. I'm the most obsessive person you will ever know. When I heard about the non-changing formless self, I thought to myself, well, nice. Now I'm going to put my attention to the self every waking second. And I do. First, I feel happy, but after a few hours, I feel resistance coming up. I'm starting to feel sick and my mind hurts. I try to push through that experience, but it becomes more bad to the point that I have to stop. What is this? My obsession needs balancing so that I put my attention less to the self and more to the world, or is the resistance of the separate self and I need to push through more? Thank you.
Well, it's definitely not resistance, because you are doing everything I could ask of you, and you're doing too much, actually. I want you to understand a couple of things that are going to help you balance, as you said. The first thing is, you are not directing where attention goes. That is a huge myth that we all hold on to, of course, because it seems that way. But you direct attention by intention. You direct attention by intention, not actually making attention move. So just the intention, just the wish, the desire to bring attention back to what is real, the self, the infinite self, noumenon, consciousness, presence, silence, is enough. And sitting down and intending to do that, we call that meditation. We could do that for 20 minutes. If you notice attention has wandered away, you bring it back. But actually pushing through is actually coming from a separate sense of someoneness. It's really trying hard to get this. And actually the opposite is needed. Some kind of more open, instead of like this, you can use that obsessiveness. That obsessiveness is a really good quality. But at first it tries to push towards some future moment where I'm awakened. Now you can use this obsessiveness to focus on a question. So very similar to my previous answer, you can question. For me, it was really helpful to question what's already here now, from a curious openness. Use that obsessive capacity to be obsessed with a question, not with a doing. No amount of doing is going to work, and you're experiencing that. It's actually making you feel ill. So get obsessed with the question instead. What's already here? What am I already? What is reality? Whatever one of these questions really kind of, because a question is a statement that I don't know, and I'm willing to actually find out in this moment. If we keep trying, that obsession will keep going forever. And we'll skip right over what's already here based on the assumption that it's not already how I want it to be, and keep moving towards them. And that is the seeking mechanism of a someone, a person, a separate being, and it's okay. But as you're seeing, it doesn't actually ever lead to the final conclusion we want. In fact, if it's obsessed enough, the seeker, it actually takes us further away from the peace we want. More disturbance, more pain, more unworthiness, because we can't seem, no matter how hard we try, we can't seem to get to where we want to be. So take the obsessiveness and get obsessed about what's here now. As you're sitting here listening to this, reality could be absolutely, completely different to what you think it is. And would we really know that? Have we ever really stopped and looked deeply into this moment with sustained curiosity? Would we ever really know what's actually here if we're only kind of using this moment as a place to travel through to the next moment where I might get what I want? And for me, that was the only thing that put the brakes on the seeking. You didn't lose the obsession. In fact, I'm more obsessed now than I've ever been, and it gets more obsessive every day. You could call that devotion also, whatever you want to call it. You could call it love. But that obsession is kind of, instead of trying to move forward, it's started to open up and really, this is what's happening for you now, open up into this moment to actually, I'm actually more obsessed with this moment, because the future moment, when you get there, it'll be now. You can never experience the future. So this forward, forward, forward motion makes sense to the mind. Go, 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 go. Because the mind believes in time, but time doesn't really exist. So as you start to see that it doesn't work, not through any fault of yours. You've given everything to this. And now it's just a shift of how, where we all come to the seeking to try to move forward. Now you want to discover what's already here, turn that attention on what's already here. Incredible as it might sound, right now, as you're sitting here listening to this, it could be completely different to what you think. What if these words are happening inside you? What if this body speaking is also you? And that mind will say, well, that doesn't seem to be my experience right now. My experience seems to be very different. How would you know really whether that's true or not if you haven't deeply investigated what reality actually is now? We all have this kind of assumption that it isn't what I want it to be yet. So we keep experiencing that. Everything we've ever done in our lives has been this forward-seeking motion. I want to get a degree, so I study for 3 years towards a future moment. I want to get married, so I plan for whatever, and that's fine for the world and worldly pursuits, but it does not work here. It's more a softening, it's an opening, it's an investigation, it's a discovery, an inclusion of what's already here. And again, on the self-inquiry playlist on YouTube, there is some guided self-inquiry, how to actually do that, what that actually looks like. So if you haven't watched those, I would really, really look at that. And any of the guided meditations will help you stop pushing and sort of more softening, discovering. And you'll go back to that seeking as you come out of the meditation, though, the self-inquiry. But you don't. Just a quick interruption there. So as I was saying, there's a whole lot of videos on YouTube there, the guided meditations. And as you practice, you will notice this slowing down of this obsessiveness in terms of where it's trying to move towards. And you'll find that it'll affect the rest of your day. You won't quite be able to push as hard. And that's a good thing. You'll find that the brakes going on. And it's like, if you imagine a really fast-moving freight train, a lot of weight behind it, a lot of momentum. And the moment you put the brakes on that train, it's going to come to a stop. So that's like synonymous with the first time you start to dive into this moment. As you stop that actual inquiry, you're going to start trying to seek again. But you won't be able to go back to it with such ferocity. And each time there'll be a softening of that. And when you throw the brakes on the train, even if it travels for another 2 miles before it actually comes to a stop, it will stop. And it is already slowing down is the most important thing. Most of us, I've found, we don't know how to put the brakes on. So instead of doing this, it's more like this, what's already here. It might be a whole different thing here than we actually expect and realize. And I found, instead of actually thinking I'm sitting in a room with all this furniture, me just sitting here doing this, actually something extraordinarily different is actually what's true. I couldn't even get a glimpse of that until I was willing to question. I might not have seen all of this moment. And still, even today, in my meditation this morning, I experienced a deeper unfolding of what's already here, a deeper seeing, more profound insight than I did yesterday. And tomorrow it'll be even more profound. It's endless. We could go down infinitely. And each day, just more and more, wow, oh my goodness, wow. So we begin that journey when we start to, the end of seeking is the beginning of discovery of what's already here. And that's literally throwing the brakes on. It's done from that point. It's just a matter of how long. And when you see, wow, when I actually start to go into what's already here, ask what's already here, my whole life starts to right itself somehow. And I feel more peace because I'm not arguing with this moment constantly. I'm not constantly with my whole existence proclaiming this moment is not how it's supposed to be. So I'd advise you have a look at those videos if you can, and or if you have already, maybe refresh yourself. Find a question that works for you. What's already here right now? What is this moment? For me, that was very, very powerful. And still, my life is an answer to that question. What is this moment? And it's constantly deepening answer with no end. It's literally infinite. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, this is from Grace. I have a question about tuning into the Numenon. My two favorite ways to tune in right now are with your guided meditation, noticing the spacious field, and listening to the silence. I know that will probably change at some point, and I guess that's okay. My question is, at some point, do we combine these two meditations together? The reason I ask is because I notice that when I tune into the spacious field, I totally forget about listening to the silence and vice versa. Is that even a concern? Thank you so much for your teachings that you speak in different ways so I will understand. Love you.
Thank you. I love you too. And good question. And everyone has their particular way of finding their way into the truth, sort of falling in love with the truth. And if that is silence for you and the spacious field, perfect. Do either one of those as much as you want to. And what will happen is, we've called it many, many names. In the Dissolve an Ego book, there's like 14 different names we use. Here-ness, now-ness, the field, as you said, the silence, stillness, consciousness, presence, existence, awakeness. These are all names for the same thing. And if you think of the real self, the noumenon, as a metaphor, as a room, and there are all these doorways around this room. You open any one of them, you go in. And as you go in far enough into this room, all the doors open. You start to see, well, wait, they're all the same thing, because they're just words that get close enough, words that elicit some kind of wanting in the body to experience that. So for me, silence had this kind of like, meh, and contextual field. Awareness, I tried for years to figure out what awareness was, and it was just confusing. I amness, I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what it is. You know, it was just frustrating. But over time, I realized the silence was actually aware. It's not just dead in a silence, it's actually listening. Like if you listen now, that listening is utterly silent, but it's very aware and intelligent. Silence is not just silence. Or even if you look at awareness, just another word for the same thing, it's silently aware, isn't it? Stillness. The stillness is very present. It's not moving anywhere. It definitely does exist. Even the sense of I exist, another one of these doors. I exist, I'm here. What that is not a thing. It's a diffuse no thingness, isn't it? The sense of existence. You can't really find it as a thing. Can't really say where you exist. So these are just examples. You look at the two that you've said, that field, spacious field, It's utterly silent, isn't it? It's not making any noise at all. When it shows up as a TV or a human being or a dog, it makes noise, but in its unmanifest, it's utterly silent and totally still, immobile, not moving. Where would it move to? Because it's everywhere already. It is utterly stillness itself. So you go in any one of these doorways deep enough, you fall in love with all of them. And that's actually really beautiful when you go, oh my goodness, the silence is just very, very present. There's a presence that is infinitely silent, that is me. And it's like one by one, these doors opened for me also. So fall in love with it whichever way, because that's sort of taking you into the experience. You already are the self, but the experience of being it is what we want. Fall in love, and you have, from what you've said, you're obviously utterly in love with it, which is perfect. And then just let explore. What is that silence? Just gently, when you feel the urge, what is silence? Is it just my silence, or is it a presence that's everywhere? If I walked across the other side of this room, would I still be able to hear the silence? If I walked to where you live or flew or whatever, would the silence that you're hearing be any different to what I'm hearing? Or would it be constantly now, the silence? Can you hear silence yesterday or tomorrow? It's very present now, and it's also here. You can't hear silence over there or over there. It's here, totally here. Not here, it's here. It's here-ness itself. And of course, I don't need you to get this right now, just to be curious as you fall in love with one way, one word like that. Naturally, you're going to open yourself up to deeper insights. Without trying, just falling in love with that way in particular, it'll start to reveal its infinite faces, infinite aliveness. Today, it kind of presented itself to me, and I'm saying it to me as if there's two, but it was this beautiful mystery. Like, I can't see myself, my formlessness. I'm this mystery, and yet I'm everywhere that form is showing up. I can't see my own face. I can only see the way I'm showing up. And it was beautiful. It's very awake, alive presence or existence that is everywhere, and yet doesn't look like anything itself, and yet can look like everything. And that's, you feel where it's, if you have a love affair with someone, you want to know everything about them, right? You're deeply curious. And it's just like that with this, isn't it? Silence. What is that? What is it? It's soft, it's soft, it's soft. Like, what is it? Just this gentle intention. Wonderful. Thank you, Karen.
Hi, Helen. I'm doing emotional processing for years, and I'm trying to feel anything that comes in my body, all the negative energies. Even if I do it for a long time now, I still experience often low states. They do not seem to reduce, neither in frequency nor in intensity. Am I doing something wrong, or are there simply so much of it? Thank you.
So it was the same for me. I got really good at feeling my emotions, because the first step on this pathway for me was admitting that I'm terrified of my emotions. And that perhaps we're all trying to push those away. So it's really good that you've come to a place where you're willing to feel them. In my experience, there was a lot of anger, a lot of shame, a lot of one of my very first memories in this body, at least, was of fear and dread, and sometimes outright terror, sometimes just nerves, and everything in between. A lot of time, really, some quite profound terror, no apparent reason. So I felt it, finally found the courage to feel it. And after 3 years of just doing this, feeling my emotions, they were getting stronger. And it didn't feel, when I first got in touch with feeling them, my body was like, oh, thank goodness. Like there was this pressure cooker of, stuff that just had to be felt. My body started to relax, and it was wonderful. But over time, that seemed to change. It actually seemed to be more tense when I was feeling them. So I realized something must have changed in that. What's happened is we've felt the backlog of emotion that was trapped in the system, or we're feeling it. but more keeps being produced because we haven't got to the root idea underneath the emotion. So instead of the emotion being the main event, the emotion is a outpouring, a symptom, a sign of a thought that's still being believed inside. And on the website helenhamilton.org, under the free teaching section, there's a list of emotions and common beliefs or stories behind them, which you can check out. If we remember, I'll try to put the link in this video too, in the description. Because every emotion, the emotional charge is coming from a thought that's still believed. So we have to look at the emotion and say, what is the story underneath this? Because the emotion keeps getting produced by the thought that's being believed. And we keep experiencing that as a thought, which we're unconscious of, an emotion, and then an outer world event experience that keeps on going around and around. They're all the same thing. How do we find out what the belief is if we're unconscious to it? Well, just to ask the emotion what story it wants to tell us. So for me, fear was obviously the huge one, as I've said. And when I asked fear what it wanted to tell me, I had to sit with it for a while, but it finally said, I'm not safe. I'm in danger. And that was it's like a visceral gut level belief. It was in every cell of my body. And I could really feel my body was really believing that. Even quite some time after I'd seen I'm Infinite, there was still this body level response, like my body wasn't convinced. And so I turned that into a contemplative question. Well, is that really true? I'm not safe. And again, it was true of a separate being, as someone called Helen, who kept getting knocked around by life and having all these experiences that reflect not being safe. And then I looked at other emotions, anger. I can't get what I want. Life is unfair. Life is unsafe. Life is out to get me. Shame. When I sat with this one, I don't deserve to exist. And unworthiness, which kind of go hand in hand, guilt, unworthiness. Kind of a lesser form of shame. I don't deserve to be happy. I've done something. There's something fundamentally wrong with me, guilt said. I am flawed or imperfect or something like that. It wasn't as strong as I don't deserve to exist, but still, I certainly don't deserve happiness, you know, those things. Or awakening. I don't deserve awakening. That was the way it was projecting. But this story, it's like sitting with the emotion. What does it want to tell me? What's the idea behind? If fear was a someone, a person, and knocked on the door and you invited them in for a cup of tea, how would it feel about life? What would it say to you? And sadness, despair, I can never be happy. I can never be happy. And apathy, there's just no point in even trying. There's no point. I don't have the energy to try. I can't ever be free or happy. So there was a whole range of emotions, from minor irritation, this thing is getting in the way of what I want, frustration, impatience. What I want is coming, but it's taking too long, a belief in time, and limitation. There's a whole list of these on that page. So I'd suggest looking at now. And of course, at first, it's impossible to ask this emotion what it wants to tell you because the charge in the system is so overwhelmed and stuck in there that you can't even remember your own name when that emotion's flowing, let alone a contemplative question. Most of us, at least, I know I couldn't. But at a certain point, I realized there must be something else, and that's what you're realizing here. So if I come to realize I am ultimately safe, that my security was never in question, or that I do deserve happiness, you know, or whatever the emotional story is, then the emotion stops being produced and we actually begin to feel the opposite. So instead of fear, peace. Not that peace is an opposite of fear, but that frequency that's been in the body of that belief can actually begin to rise into contentment and peace and love and joy and all the things that we've heard awakening can be, but might not be currently experiencing. So I would suggest starting with the loudest emotion, whichever one's shouting loudest at you, and then sitting with that. What do you want to tell me? And it'll be some kind of I belief, a way that I see the world, but haven't currently realized I see the world that way, and or see myself. Same in the end. And then just turn that into a question. Well, is that really true? And use the contemplative techniques in the playlist Core Teachings here on YouTube. There's a guided contemplation, and we're doing it next week in Satsang next Thursday. So if you can't join us live, you're welcome to join us, of course, but you can watch it when it's recorded and uploaded. We'll do some guided contemplation, how to work with a question to undo the belief. Asking a question is the exact opposite of believing a thought. And these thoughts are so believed that we don't even think to question them. Of course, I'm not safe. I run out of money. People are leaving me. I can't rely on anything. But all of this experience in the outer world is a reflection of what I'm holding on to inside, mirror image. And the emotion is trying to tell us the story if we will listen to it. And then it can leave and turn back into peace. That's all it wants. So I hope that helps. And just pick the loudest one first, and then go to the next one after that. And you'll probably find the first one, you learn in the contemplative process. It's different technique to use. You get the hang of it, you'll start to see this has only seemed so real because I've given it so much attention. And the moment you start to question it, things begin to shift. So thank you, Karen.
Okay, the last question is from Ideology to Unity. And he asks, what is the best way to navigate the subconscious or part of it, doing its best to convince you of black pill scenarios, pessimistic, worst case, grim, dark worldviews?
So, good question. The best thing to do, the first thing, is not to judge that if you can. And I know that may sound obvious, but when I'd started to see who I really am, like what I really am, this infinite everywhereness, when ideas like that came up in the, it was from a lack of safety, a feeling lack of safety and all of that. First thing I wanted to do was to push them away. They're not true. They're not true. I've seen they're not true. Why are you here? You should go away. You should just leave. You're obviously not true. And paradoxically, we can actually be pushing harder against the subconscious or the egoic sense of self than we've ever done before. When we've started to see who we are. And, or even if we haven't seen who we are, we can still be pushing against that. I might have heard that it isn't true. But I would suggest that they are, we have, like the previous question I just answered, there's a unconscious belief and an emotion is produced from that. And then the thoughts that we're conscious of every day are the mind trying to explain why we feel this way. So let's say that we feel strongly that there's something out there that's going to get us, some organization, some secret group or something, whatever that is. And that's different for all of us. That's the mind trying to explain why I feel this emotion, which is really linked back to this thought that I haven't seen. So actually the subconscious, we haven't actually seen it yet. That's why it's subconscious. The mind is right. It's going to say rational thoughts, but they're not always. It's the thoughts that we're aware of. It's trying to explain why we feel this way. So I would, first of all, not judge them. Look at them as signs of how you can deepen in your awakening. And then look at the emotions that you're feeling, as I said with the previous question. What is that trying to tell me? Because while I was still holding on to this idea that I'm not safe, there seemed to be a lot of agencies and groups and things like that that could really affect me here, the separate being, that I had no control over at all. And that seemed extraordinarily, there's wars going on, there's things happening on the planet that I seem to have powerless over. People making decisions that affect my life that I've got no capacity to have any input in. But as I started to see, actually, I am the ultimate security. I'm infinite and immortal, and I'll never die. I was never born. I started to also realize I am those beings. making those decisions in those groups and everything in between. I am the saints and sages and all of that. I am everything, every way it can express itself, this infinite self. And there was a sense of empowerment rather than being disempowered that came from seeing that. But only first of all undoing the thoughts behind the emotions. So I would look at what negative emotions you feel on a regular basis, or even just once in a blue moon. But they might be very, very strong when they come. And your body's telling you, it's a believer meter. You might not even be aware that you don't feel safe. Consciously in your life, you might feel very safe. Good job, good family, enough money to pay the bills, not likely to come into any physical harm or anything like that. Health is good. But unconsciously, we can have this idea that I'm not safe. It's inherent in being a separate being, feeling we're separate. And that's showing up as the emotion and all these other thoughts from the mind. So that would be what I would do. First of all, not judging, if you can. Maybe mind is helping you now, showing you these ideas. They're going to help you go deeper and into your awakening, see clearer and clear up more of these. So not judging, and then finding the emotion, tracking that back to the actual unconscious belief. What does that emotion want to tell you? And then questioning if that's true, actually. Again, using the contemplative techniques. So hope that helps. Thank you very much, Karen, for helping. Thank you. So just to wrap this up, just as I said in the beginning, the next one of these will be the middle of October. So if you have a question or a comment or anything you'd like me to address or an update on anything you've written in about before, leave it as a comment under this YouTube video, and then we'll address it as we come to it next time. Thank you so much. Namaste.